Now let's look at the interest coverage ratio, another real good ratio. It can get a little wacky as far as understanding it, so bear with me a little bit on this part. But the interest coverage ratio, in a nutshell, is looking at how is my firm, the company I'm looking to invest in, are they able to make their payments? Are they able to make their interest payments on their debt that they're carrying? Thus, it's in the debt ratio bucket as far as these different ratios that we have out there, like debt to equity would be in the debt ratio bucket. And if you got maybe a higher debt to equity ratio company, you might be thinking, ooh, that might be a little risky. I wonder if they're able to make their payments. How are they doing making their payments? Well, the interest coverage ratio is right there for you to help you out with that, answer that question. So it comes off the income statement, and you're looking at your coverage ratio, or your interest coverage ratio is calculated by looking at your EBIT divided by interest expense, right? And so you're thinking, oh, what's an EBIT? Come on, what's an EBIT? So EBIT is earnings before interest and taxes. It's a measure, a financial measure, accounting measure to look at basically your operating income. How much income are we getting from operations? And that's what you want to know in this case is, are we getting enough money coming in operationally to then service our debt, to service our interest? So that's why the interest expense is backed out of that, because we want to get a comparison of those numbers in terms of a ratio. This also can be known as the times interest earn ratio. So if you ever see TIE ratios or times interest earn or ICR or interest coverage ratio, essentially they are the same thing. So they measure really the same thing. And how well can a company meet its interest payment obligations, right? If I can pay my interest, if I can pay my debt, then I can keep going and continue to earn more money and all that. Just like you might own a home or a car where you're paying regular monthly payments, it's the same thing. Interest coverage ratio is looking at those regular payments of interest, and can a company, service that debt, and are they making their payments? So maybe they have a large debt to equity ratio, but they're having enough operating income coming in that they have no problem paying their debt, and they're able to use that borrowed money to fuel this fast growth. Heck, that might be a great thing, particularly for a growth company. So any company that has a debt or an interest coverage ratio that's lower than 1 or 1.0, that's usually a sign of trouble, right? You want that operating income to be bigger than that interest expense, in terms of a ratio. So you want that to be a bigger number, and the bigger the better in this case. So if you see anything less than 1, that's really concerning, especially in comparison, in correlation, that is, with the debt equity ratio. You see with somebody with a high debt equity ratio, they're carrying a lot of debt, and they're having a very low interest coverage ratio, so they're having a hard time paying that debt. And then you might be looking at their earnings, their sales, and all their stuff. There might be a lot of warning signs around that stock. You might want to move away from that stock and look at somebody who's carrying less debt and has no problems with their interest coverage ratio, because it's above 1, and hopefully quite a bit above 1 in comparison to others. But certainly being above 1 is where you want to be in the interest coverage ratio.